Today we're going to talk about the holographic human, what we refer to as the flat map. We have a dimensional map as well, but today we're going to talk about the flat map and the way this works with our body. It helps with us reading body language, knowing what we're processing and where it lies on our body. So to begin with, the upper right section from the shoulder up, this is what? Primary question being what? This is where we process the sense of sound. It creates our values, ethics, and meaning. Primary question is what? The major and minor metaprograms are deletes by sameness. This is a mental process and it's past referenced. Then on the upper left section, this is where we process the sense of sight. Primary question being why. This is how we process our ideas, reasons, and concepts. It's also a mental process and it's also past referenced. On the right side, between the shoulder and hip section, this is our sense of touch. This is the way we relate things, our relationships. It processes touch. Primary question being who. This is emotional and it is present tense. The left side of our body, from the shoulder to the hip area, this is where we process energy and intuitions. It's our actions. Primary question being which. This is also emotional and present tense. On the right side of the map, from the hip down, our right leg, this is where we process a sense of taste. The primary question being how. This creates our beliefs about character, functions. It is future-based and it's a physical processing. On the left side of the map, from the hip down, your left leg, this is where we process the sense of smell. Primary question being where. This is also how we process our beliefs about how things work and creates our strategies for different things. This is also a future-based processing, and it is a physical processing.
A lot of you guys might be wondering, as she tells you all of that, if this is the first time you're hearing it, like, what are you talking about, right? And you've heard us talk in some of our previous videos, I hope, about how your brain operates and how your central nervous system corresponds with your brain. And you hear us talk about how, if you were to connect end to end all of your dendrites, your central nervous system, it would wrap around Earth and Jupiter 6 times. You've got a lot of nerve, right? And the really interesting part that this plays in your whole system is that your brain corresponds with your body, your whole system, in a way that creates meaning in the way that you communicate with yourself and other people. You've heard us talk about communication and how it's only 6% verbal, and a large portion of communication is through the way that you move. Movement has meaning, and it's really an interesting way to get to know yourself on a more intricate level, a more personal level, and to get to know whether or not you're coherent, whether or not your thoughts are coherent with the things that you're saying. And there's a lot of cool and brilliant aspects of this, what we're going to be talking about, that you can use to better get to know yourself and alleviate some of the really intense blocks that you have in your central nervous system firing order. It's really awesome.
So based upon the holographic human transformation theory, there are 6 different personality profiles that you can identify from knowing this map. And by knowing these things, it helps you get to know yourself better, the way you process information. And so I'm going to go through a brief description of the 6 different personality profiles. We just kind of talked about the primary questions and the way these relate with the firing orders. So an idealist is you are the thinkers for the world, being driven to set direction for new pathways to increase life's meaning and add greater value. Life's focus for you is mostly on the past, and you are constantly looking for more data and feedback the past may offer you. You are a person who takes great action in your choices and is always seeking more data for more wisdom in your choice. Removing thoughts of the past from your mind is a natural pattern for you when you find greater value and meaning in something new. Idealists believe that everyone has or must have their ideals and ethics. They are detail-oriented to the point of being overly perfectionist. Often, something is best or worst, with no middle ground. They believe in honor and live by a universal code of ethics. When they do not, it becomes a matter of pride, which they have too much of. They need to learn patience perfectly. It is their ideal to manifest their ideals and objectives sooner than immediately. This sometimes gets in the way, and so they have a tendency to jump ahead of themselves, trying to take action, usually massive action, as quickly as possible. Their philosophy is to live and act wisely in their striving to build and bring order to an imperfect world. Idealists are the rarest type. They can be very reclusive and oftentimes rich. Many live in England and Canada. A small percentage of idealists live in the United States and other parts of the world. And their firing order, they start with what, who, how, and then they go to why, and then where and which.
So, in really quick, in noticing that you started with an idealist, there, and you said that they start in what, their first sense fired in their central nervous system firing order, what we talked about earlier, your firing sequence, is in the sense of sound, and then has a certain sequence that they go through from the right side to the left side to complete their firing order.
Well, and this is what we refer to as the 2-second rule. When we work at figuring out people's personality profiles, we'll ask them a question of a success in their life. And as we even start to ask the question, they're going to go through a complete neural fire within 2 seconds. And then they're going to end up on their last sense fired. And for an idealist, it's going to be which, their left hand. And they'll go through a complete neural fire in 2 seconds before the question's even asked. So by them gesturing that area of their body, and it can be just a minor slight movement, you're going to be able, oh, they're an idealist.
Yeah. Thus, movement has meaning. I mean, they're communicating in a way that's mapped out according to this flat map. And if you learn, or when you learn and really get to know this flat map, you will get to know people on a profound level, right?
And in all the personality profiles have these, as I choose to look at it, these positive and negative aspects, which every human does. We've all got, different aspects of ourselves that aren't the greatest that we like to work on it. And by knowing these things and the way you process information, it can help you overcome these things. They're with idealists, their past reference, their mental processing, all their reference senses are sound and sight. So it's a very, I hear and see, it's what they're referring to.
Yeah, and just getting to know the different aspects of this flat map in regards to yourself. When you do find out your personality profile and get to know your firing order, you can really develop a meaningful way of figuring out the way that you process and store information, right? Mm-hmm. Let's go on to the old conceptualist.
So a conceptualist, you may be called a visionary person, always able to see and gain ideas to aid others in life's direction. You are very logical and detailed in your thinking. Change can be easy for you, especially when it pertains to the past. There is very little that you miss about what goes on around you, though you might struggle with the way it actually relates to you. You might struggle at times with intuitions you get, especially when they mean you must question intuitions you already had. The best way to deal with this is to question yourself about the current and past intuitions and take no action for a short time. It may be best to just wait and observe, and the answer will appear. Conceptualists are the brains of the human family. They are thinkers, extremely intelligent and very logical. They tend to be very disassociated and digital, having an insatiable appetite for information. They love books and reading. Conceptualists have fond memories, especially regarding the glory of the past. They can also be quite self-righteous and stuck up. They can easily become thick and stodgy, bureaucratic traditionalists. Sometimes they are quirky and moody and have a low threshold for ambiguity. Since they want to see the cause of things, they need to know that they know and feel powerless if they don't. This is very important to them because they are highly motivated to feel a great sense of personal power. Many conceptualists live in England and Canada. A small percentage of conceptualists live in the United States and other parts of the world.
Yeah, the cool thing about when you read these things, if to our viewers, if these things are sticking out to you, it could be an indicator that this might be your sensory personality profile. And that's a great place to start, is finding out what your profile is and moving on from there with this material.
And a conceptualist is going to be the exact opposite as an idealist. So a conceptualist firing order is why, where, which, what, who, how. And this is their firing order, and they're going to be the exact opposite of an idealist. So their firing orders are exactly opposite. Still, their reference points are the same. It's sound and sight, but one's a worldview based and one's a self-view based that we'll get more into in the way we meet and greet the world and meet and greet ourselves. It's it's very helpful to know your personality firing order and the way you view the world and meet yourself and the way you process information. So by learning these things, it can give us a lot of data regarding ourselves and getting to know ourselves.
And it's so awesome, man, to really realize that there's so much more going on than we realize, you know. There's so much more to ourselves than we've ever been taught before, and getting to know this information is getting to know yourself on such a personal level, and then you get to also get to know other people on such a personal level, and it creates connection and intimacy and things that you might be lacking in life. It's a great way. It's a pathway.
As we read through these personality profiles, as you get to maybe pick one out that fits you or people you know, like, oh, that reminds me of that person. It can help you correspond with others better, and especially yourself.
For sure. Shall we?
Relationalist. You are focused in the present and can be very loving and nurturing to the world around you. You are very informative about the way very different things in the world might relate to other things. You have a tendency to question yourself a lot and at times find it difficult to recognize the role you play in the world around you. Many people look for comfort, though you're not confident always to see your own strengths and your ability to help them. Because of this, you are at times a bit codependent, and this may be overcome by believing more in yourself and trusting your intuitions. You can also be strengthened by not taking actions always in the present, but letting life fix itself. Relationalists are people person. They are natural networkers capable of building strong connections between themselves and others. They can be very nurturing and motherly as well as achievement-oriented. Unfortunately, they want to maintain their relationships at all costs, even at the cost of themselves. Many are codependent enablers and are victims of their own self-sacrifice. This happens because they are usually other referenced. Their life challenge is to become their own authority. They feel that they are nothing without relationship. Some fall prey to self-deception. Relationalists have a tendency to actively avoid people and things they do not like or relate to negatively. They will do this avoidance until some stimulus throws them into overwhelm. There are 3 types of relationalists. A, the helper, someone that gives assistance, support, such as an extra locomotive attached to a train at the front, middle, or rear. The helper is someone that stimulates another directly as a signal. The helper gives or renders aid, assistance, or service directly or indirectly. B, the counter-exemplar. The counter-exemplar go contrary to the standard model, sometimes in a reverse, opposite, or contrary direction in opposition. These people might respond opposing and refuting at times. When mature, they are very original archetypes, such as Plato and other great path builders. C, the achiever, also called the chief. Achievers are naturally successful to an end result, being able to see things through to completion. They attain by great effort they put forth and usually come out victorious, especially when they have a purpose. They bring about the intended conclusion. Relationalists make up over 55% of the American population, as well as a vast majority of Hispanics and Europeans like the French, the Germans, and Italians. Most all blacks are relationists.
Yeah, this is the opposite of my firing order. I'm an actionist and relationalist. The thing is I relate to a lot of the things that is said in there because it's. Well, I don't know if I want to say that.
Well, it's, and we'll get more into this, but everybody has an opposite, and like he said, he's an actionist, so his true self, his self-view is a relationalist, and as we start to learn these things about us and become our true self, and we're firing correctly, and we start to become that true self, that relationalist.
We start to exude the very qualities that she just talked about as we become our true selves. I find today that, you know, I'm a lot more nurturing than I used to be, and I have a lot of the qualities within what you just read, and I display them, and I am them a lot of the times, and it's really cool to notice throughout, you know, my own personal transformation process, some of these things come to life in my true self. It's really cool.
And these, as we go through the firing orders, these are your most ideal firing order, your most ideal self. It's the way you naturally process information and fire through your nervous system. So, actionist, and Colby is an actionist. You are very intuitive, though take action too quickly and with too much emotion. Take some time to just see what may happen before taking action, then do take action. You have a problem with allowing others to assist you, and you don't rely enough on relationships you already have. You can even be stubborn at times. You are a library of information and motivated for more knowledge for the future. You offer your knowing freely to the world with reasons and steps for applying the knowledge. Actionists are individualists that enjoy their unique specialness. They like being different. For them, their word is their bond. They often sacrifice themselves to keep a promise. They are the world's biggest doubters and can seem miserably selfish and overly self-centered ice men or maidens. They frequently suffer from being envious. Unlike relationalists, they have a hard time maintaining their connection with others. They often feel they live the tragic life of the misunderstood romantic. If they don't know which action to take, they are unwilling and many times unable to act. Being in motion means living. It signifies purpose. Many are addicted to movement actions. They have an issue with anger and can be very wrathful. They are motivated to be the living embodiment of their ideals and constantly refining and redefining their knowledge and skills. Actionists, if mature, can be very wise. There are also three types of actionists. A, the individualist. The individualist shows great independence and individuality in thought and actions. They advocate for individuality and individualism and are sensitive to particular characteristics distinguishing self from others. These for them are a principle and a habit to a point, at times of not pursuing common or collective interests. B, the observer. The observer is good at just observing and being able to report happenings and events. They merely observe. This can cause others to not always appreciate them, as they seldom get involved personally. They have a natural tendency to report events and happenings as they might observe them approaching the situation. The observer does pay close attention to many things and usually considers carefully many events happening at one time. C, the doer. The doer is always doing something and will get things done with vigor and efficiency. They are characterized by action and distinguished from one given to completion. The doer generally has an amusing or eccentric character. Most of the people of Scandinavia and Holland are actionists. They represent roughly 25% of the American population, many of them Hispanics.
Yep. That's me. This is me. Actionist all the way. And like I said earlier, I relate to a lot of the relationalist stuff, and as she reads that to me now, I get to see the aspects of my own personal character and the way I relate to myself has shifted from, because I used to be really angry. I had a lot of anger issues growing up and rage incidents where I couldn't really get a handle on my emotions very well. And as I've progressed through this material, getting to know personally my personality profile, it's really helped me to discover a lot of these character defects that have been limiting me for quite some time, and it's been very rewarding for me. Very rewarding.
An actionist firing order, and they start on the left side of the map, is which, why, where, who, how, what.
Yeah, that's the sequence by which my central nervous system digests data, basically, and it sorts and stores and filters it, and then it'll go back down to my subconscious for filing, right? And so as I get information, data from my world, it starts in my left hand, goes up to my sense of sight, my Y, shoots down to my sense of smell, my strategies, my beliefs about how things work, and then it crosses over and comes over to my who, my relationships, and the way things relate, back down to how, into my beliefs about character, and then finishes in my values, ethics, and meanings, my primary question of what, my sense of sound. And it happens very fast, in actually 0.22 of a second. That's happening, and it's repeating, and it's happening again, and it's repeating, and it's happening again. And it never shuts off. It never shuts off. And one of the beautiful aspects of this is knowing this firing sequence is you can realize where you've been blocked off from your life's experiences. Your life's experiences from birth until now have created sensory nervous system blocks in regards to any subject. And Janie Marvin has developed and authored quite a few techniques that you can use as a way to alleviate these blocks and to start firing as you should have been firing this whole time. And it's a really cool opportunity.
As we talk about these firing orders, we're going to refer to some things called reference senses, decision senses, and motivator senses. And you have these for both sides of the map. So as an actionist, he starts on the left side of the map, and then he'll cross over into his self view, which would be the right side of the map. And you've got reference, decision, and motivator points for both sides of the map. So we refer to them as the 1 and 4, the 2 and 5, and the 3 and 6. Your first and fourth are your reference senses. So he references emotionally based. It's very present based.
My sense of energy and my sense of touch.
And
my reference senses.
As we read through these descriptions, actionists and relationalists, they reference emotions. It's very emotional based, right? And as an actionist, it says they like to take action quickly. Right? And so that can be one of their things that get them in trouble sometimes, is taking action on their emotions.
Yeah.
So by knowing this information and the way he processes information, what could you do?
Right. I get to take no action on my present emotions.
So what does that mean, take no action?
It means to literally take no action in the present and theorize upon my emotions. If I'm experiencing anything right now in my present that's uncomfortable, that's negative in its nature, that causes me concern, right? I get to just be aware of myself. I get to be aware of my surroundings and what's going on inside of me and just check in. And like I said, as I experience these negative things, I get to question them. I say, hey, what is this about? Why is this happening, right? And if those two answers, because the what is it about and why is it happening, are in my sense of sound and sight, and they're in my past. And if my answers to those two questions, which the answers are in the questions, are a past referenced situation, right? I get to create new pathways, right? I get to question, I get to say, hey, you know what? If this is reminding me of something from my past, then I'm probably reliving my past in my present, and I get to work on whatever it is I'm referencing to back there. And it's a literal pathway. I mean, if you guys have ever wanted to change something about yourself and wondered how the hell you're going to do it, or what's the first step, right? The first step is getting to know this body map, for sure. And then it's getting to know how you store and process information. And it's literally like a step-by-step pathway to knowing and healing yourself. It's absolutely incredible. And just that brief example of monitoring your emotions in your present for an actionist or a relationship, it's a great pathway to just get to know what's really going on inside of you.
Well, really, for anyone, it's great to
Absolutely,
be able to monitor that. And
especially for an actionist in a relationships, because they're so emotional, My first sense fired is my energy, my fourth sense is my touch, so anything that I'm referencing is going to be in my present, and it's going to be emotional. And so as I just monitor my emotions in my present, and create a dialogue, theorize upon it, write it down if I have to, journal about it, and go back and reread it and figure out when, later when the emotions have subsided, if I don't get to the bottom of it right then, I get to go and reread it and say, you know what? That's actually been a pattern in my life, and I get to create a pathway of success and do something differently, right?
It's just like I'm watching you over here doing
Yeah.
that. That's actionist right there.
When I'm teaching groups, people won't even sit next to me because they say I elbow them and stuff, and that's an actionist for sure. I'm action oriented. Let's just put it that way.
Functionists. Functionists make up 75% of the world population. You are good at business, and your main focus is always for tomorrow's success plans. You can seem a bit cold in your personal relationships at times. Your view of the world is based upon processes, values, and relationships, so you can be very dedicated to family and friends. Your view of yourself is a step-by-step instructions for accomplishment, so you can be somewhat self-critical. You might also question your own actions and intuitions and have trouble with your reasons for doing these. Functionists put things together. They work on problems by using their great capacity to absorb and digest enormous amounts of data. Their random yet systematic processing forms organized structures whose parts work together like finely meshed gears. They are motivated to seek out the most important ideas and feel stunned when they take these solutions and find they can't work it out into a plan. Their first thought is safety and security, so they find ways of circumventing discomfort and pain. They are consistently finding ways to make life better, but unfortunately they can fall into greed and gluttony as they strive to feel good. These powerful people have an insatiable curiosity and so usually develop a diverse range of interests and tastes. Although they sometimes tend to be optimistic dreamers and a bit naive, this is tempered by their practical side. Functionists and group tend to strive for uniformity, yet can be respectful of personal idiosyncrasies. Most of the Japanese are functionists. Some North and South American Indian tribes are made up mostly functionists. It has been discovered that some Irish people of Celtic origins are also of the type. I am a functionist. It is my favorite one. And it describes me to a T. My firing order is how, what, who, where, which, why. So I start on the right side of the map. And yeah, I'm future-based, belief-based. Mm-hmm. Physical responses first.
Yep. And knowing, I mean, just reading this, you probably saw me snicker a couple of times because knowing Whitney the way I do, and as long as I have, and knowing this information, you know, she reads that profile out loud, and I can just think back in my mind, and literally everything that she does and says, and the way she is, and the way that, you know, even down to her being a picky eater. You know, it's all about the functions and the processes of things, and it's just a profound, accurate description of the way she operates, her whole system. I mean, it defines her whole system. I mean, it's really cool.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
Yeah, so am I.
Strategist. So strategist is the opposite of me. It would be considered my self-view, or true self as a strategist. That part I struggle a bit with. I like my functionistness, my functionistness. Strategist, you are very rare and have great capability of being rich in whatever course you choose in life. You have a great knowledge and know when to act or when to question before you action. You are seen by others for your great abilities, though you don't always recognize these in yourself. Strategists are planners, tacticians that work things out sequentially. They prize competency and are guardians of skill, being dedicated and hardworking individuals that thrive on tight schedules. They have basic life issues with money and risking and sometimes sex because they like the sweet smell of success. They live with the ever-present danger of falling into lust and avarice. Strategists are afraid of doing things wrong and not fitting in. They sometimes have a hard time finding what feels good to them. To compensate for their lack of self-confidence with others, they continually look for ways of connecting with a group that has stable, well-defined values. They are very loyal to others they respect and admire. There is a heart of gold at the end of their rainbow. Most of the Chinese, the Taiwanese, and Tibetans are of the type, making them the highest percentage of the world's population. Some North and South American Indian tribes are made up mostly of strategists. You might struggle at times with your relationship with God. And a strategist firing order is where, which, why, how, what, who, which would be the exact opposite of my firing order.
And I just think it's important to mention that we all have our own identities. We all have our own personalities, right? We are all individuals in our own right. We have the way that we work individually as human beings. And then this information leads you to the understanding that we all operate exactly the same. Male, female, our human bodies operate exactly the same. That's why surgeries are across the board for everybody. A heart surgeon does heart surgeries on everybody the same way, you know, because our bodies are structured the same way. And so as you learn the intricacies of your own firing order and the way that your central nervous system firing sequence operates, you get to realize that you can learn about yourself in those intricate ways and because of this material and the way that you learn about yourself, you get to learn about everybody else around you. It literally provides such a deeper meaning and connection in life. You know, you correspond with people in ways that your subconscious has been recognizing itself this whole time. You just haven't had conscious access. And it's really unfortunate that we haven't been, taught this material or these concepts well before now, in elementary school. And that's neither here nor there. But the fact is that we have this ability to learn it now. And man, I would just think that it's almost requisite for mankind to learn this information and get to know themselves and expand their range of view in regards to themselves. I like to point out that it talks about the Chinese and the Taiwanese and the Tibetans that are mostly strategists right there, and it just gets you to an awareness that all human beings operate the same way.
There's a structure, a pattern, and a process to the way we operate, and still we're individualists, and it's all the process, the structure, the pattern, and the process are the same from human to human. Still, the way we process the information is different based upon our firing order, our reference points, our decision points, and our motivator points, and really the way we meet and greet the world and the way we meet and greet ourselves. And still knowing these things, you get to know yourself better, overcome those things that aren't the most desirable. You can learn to work with them and make them work for you instead of against you. And then by learning these things, you're able to correspond with others better. Knowing Colby, he references actions, absolutely, and he's emotional.
Yep.
And me, you challenge my beliefs or hit me with my beliefs. It's not a good thing. But that's about me, and I get to be open to beliefs, and that's, you can hit him with emotional things and or realize that's what he references first. And as a functionist, I reference beliefs first, belief systems, and as a idealist or a conceptualist, it's mental for them. So you challenge their thought process and the way they're thinking.
Their intellectual capabilities. You're challenging the way they are, for sure. Okay, and this is just a brief segment of an introduction of the Holographic Human Map, and we're obviously not going to go to the deep detail of everything that this consists of, and I just encourage all of you, if you're wondering about what we're talking about and it's resonating, it's sparking interest in your mind, to really take the opportunity to get to know yourself by going and purchasing the Holographic Human Transformation Theory from our Holographic Human Coach website, and really get to know yourself on an intimate level and change your life circumstances, and it's an amazing opportunity to really gain a better perspective of yourself. It's amazing.